This meeting is being held in compliance with the Brown Act. SCAG offices are open for members of the public to attend and participate in person. Instructions for providing public comment have been provided in advance and are also included in the agenda packet. If a member of this body is attending remotely but is not at a location specified on the agenda, they may observe and comment as a member of the public, but may not participate in any member discussion or voting of this body. For all members participating remotely, please ensure your microphone is muted when not in use. Please state your name during deliberations and whether making a motion or offering a second. Any voting member or member of the public calling into this meeting by telephone can press *6 to mute and unmute. All telephone participants should identify themselves prior to speaking. SCAG encourages all members of the public to participate in its meetings. We are committed to holding meetings accessible to people with disabilities. For members of the public requiring ADA accommodation, please call 213-236-1895. SCAG offers free interpretation services for members of the public needing information in another language. Please call 213-236-1895. The meeting will now begin.
Well, good morning, everybody. Good morning. Welcome to the LCMC meeting for February. Today is Tuesday, February 17th. I'm Mayor Patricia Dawson, the current chair of this committee, and appreciate your patience with all of our technical issues this morning. But the time now is 8:40, and the meeting of the Legislative Communications and Membership Committee is now called to order. So with that, we just want to make sure we're going to make some housekeeping notes here before we get into our agenda. As a reminder, if a member of this body is attending remotely but not at a location specified on the agenda, they may observe and comment as a member of the public but may not participate in any member discussion or voting of this body. And I would please ask, let me see if I can ask Kurt Hagman, please, to lead us in today's Pledge of Allegiance. Kurt, if you're there.
Sure do. Please all rise and please repeat after me. And I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Hagman. All right, so let's move on to open our, well, first I gotta check in with Emma, make sure we've got a quorum. Do we?
Chair, I am confirming that we have met quorum.
Perfect. Now we're going to move on to open our public comment, and this is for general public comment. This is the time for members of the public to offer comment on matters that are within SCAG's jurisdiction but not listed on the agenda. Have we received any written public comments?
Did not receive any public comments before or after the 5 p.m. deadline, and we currently do not have any raised hands via Zoom or members of the public in person.
All right, great. Then we'll close that public comment for matters not listed on the agenda. All right. Now we need to review and prioritize our agenda items. If anybody has anything they want to take out of order, and also consider our consent calendar. So we'll open public comment for these two items. Do we have any members of the public who wish to speak on this item?
There are no raised hands via Zoom and no members of the public in person.
All right. Did anybody want to pull anything from consent? I see Wendy Bucknam.
I'll move it.
Thank you. I'd like to pull agenda item number 1, the minutes, please.
Okay. Can we have staff present that before moving to a roll call vote, please? and ask Wendy, what is the concern or issue?
Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate it. So this just goes back to my comments at the last meeting. Specifically, I think it would be important to include in the minutes an acknowledgement that a few of us asked for additional information on how local governments can obtain additional funding or direct allocations through the REAP 1. And as we discussed last month, there was a concern over costs that us local jurisdictions have to bear on updating our housing elements. And we were talking several hundred thousands of dollars in many cases, and others it's approaching close to that million mark plus. So what I would like to propose on page 12 in that third paragraph is just that we include a statement that says, questioned instead of which were addressed accordingly, say how local jurisdictions could receive any funding support for the 7th cycle housing element preparation under the REAP 1.0 codification proposal, and requested staff to provide additional information when the item returns to the LCMC, which I think is going to happen today. But I would just like, I think it's important because it's an important piece that was brought up. I don't know if my colleagues agree, but that would be my proposal for that slight amendment.
Yeah, I don't see any issue with it, but I want to check with staff first, Kevin or Javiera, if somebody wants to comment on that. If that seems, I think it seems innocuous enough, and we can make sure we get it in there.
Madam Chair, we'd be happy with the direction of the committee to include that amendment in the minutes for this meeting.
No, this is Hagman. I'll amend my motion to include that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Perfect. Thanks. And
I'll second.
All right. Thanks, Wendy. All right. So let's incorporate that and with our other agenda items so we can, I'm assuming that was a motion then to approve the consent with that amendment, including agenda approval items 1 and receive and file items 2 and 3. So I will ask now Emma to please do a roll call vote.
Cindy Allen.
Aye.
Thank you. Wendy Bucknam.
Aye, and thank you, colleagues, for that amendment.
Jenny Crosswhite.
Crosswhite, aye.
Margaret Finlay.
Finlay, aye.
Kurt Hagman.
Hagman, aye.
Jan Harnick.
Yes.
Mark Henderson.
Yes.
Laura Hernandez.
Hernandez, yes.
Fred Jung.
Fred Jung, aye.
Patricia Luck Dawson.
Aye.
Ray Marquez.
Yes.
Suli Saro.
Aye.
David Shapiro. David Shapiro. Donald Wagner. Alan Wapner.
Collins, yes.
Thomas Wong.
Yes.
Madam Chair, with 14 yes votes, 0 no votes, and 0 abstentions, the committee has approved the consent calendar.
Thank you very much, Emma. Let us go on then to our action items. And we are going to item number 4. We're going to be talking about REAP 1 and the bill that we are hoping to get over the finish line. Let's see, do we have any members of the public who wish to speak on this item?
Good morning, Chair. Item 4 is an action item on which staff is recommending that the LCMC forward a recommendation to the Regional Council for SCAG to adopt a official support position on and sponsor the bill to codify the Regional Early Action Planning Grant 1.0 program, as well as a complimentary $125 million budget request to fund a new round of that program.
David, can I interrupt you for just a moment, please? Thank you. I, on my end, did not hear if public comment was open or was closed. If we had any public comment regarding the item. So if Emma said that we did not, I just want to make sure we close the loop on that.
We did not receive any public comments for item number, sorry.
It's 4.
Yes, item number 4 on the agenda. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Okay, now I feel better. We can close public comment for item 4. And David, please, the floor is yours. Thank you.
So this item is a follow-up to last month's presentation where I provided an initial briefing on the research efforts we undertook in partnership with the California Association of Councils of Governments, or CalCog, to explore the possibility of sponsoring legislation to codify REAP 1.0, which supports the regional housing planning and implementation priorities in our state legislative platform. So we wanted to bring this item back to the committee now with the recommendation to support and serve as sponsor, now that we've secured the unbacked legislative language, which is attached to the staff report and is the draft legislative text for the proposal, requiring now a bill author in order to be introduced. So as I mentioned last month, we're working with Assemblymember Jose Luis Sulache, who we anticipate will formally introduce the bill this week in advance of the bill introduction deadline on Friday, February 20th. And he has also mentioned that he's interested in championing the complementary $125 million budget request. So this recommendation, if forwarded by the LCMC and approved by the RC, would formalize the two-prong approach that I shared last month, which would allow staff to proceed with prong 1, which entails SCAG formally sponsoring the bill to codify REAP 1.0 into state law, and prong 2, which entails advocating for a complementary budget request of $125 million, of which SCAG would receive about half. The staff report also contains an updated summary of the provisions outlined in the official unbacked bill language, which proposes to codify the 2019 REAP 1.0 framework in the State Health and Safety Code, where state programs administered by HCD are typically located. Since the unbacked bill language is substantially similar with the summary that I provided last month in the staff report, the updated summary only contains minor changes to reflect how the Legislative Council standardized the language to align with existing HCD administered programs in the Health and Safety Code, and also a few edits to include technical clarifying or formatting improvements that they made. And so as a final note, as Councilmember Buckner mentioned, there were some concerns last month regarding this proposal and how it did not include direct allocations to local governments to assist with housing element work. So first, I wanted to provide a quick point of clarification. So in 2019, the state passed AB 101, the Housing Budget Trailer Bill, which authorized and funded various different programs through the broader local government grant supports program, which included a one-time authorization and one-time allocation of $125 million for REAP 1.0, which SCAG used to create various programs, provide technical assistance to our local jurisdictions, and competitively suballocate funding to local governments to support various activities, which included housing element updates. Separately, that program also included a one-time authorization of the Local Early Action Planning Grant Program, or LEAP, and a one-time $125 million allocation to fund the LEAP, which provided direct allocations to local governments to fund housing-related planning activities, which included housing element updates. So this proposal doesn't exclude direct allocations to local governments from the REAP 1.0 because those came from a separate program, the LEAP. And so this bill is simply proposing to codify one program, the REAP 1.0, from the multitude of programs that were authorized in the 2019 Local Government Grant Support Program. And so we anticipate that if the state fulfills our full 125 million budget ask, SCAG would conduct a call for projects as we did in 2019 with REAP 1.0 funding to suballocate a portion of REAP 1.0 funds, with of course one eligible use being housing element update work. Since the January meeting, we also engaged with the League of Cities on this issue, and they noted while they would be supportive of this effort to codify REAP 1.0, they're currently prioritizing budget requests for housing development programs this year, including the multifamily housing and infill infrastructure grant programs, as well as other affordable housing programs. So they're more focused on development-related asks. And we feel that we would need Cal City support and active engagement from them to broaden the proposal to include LEAP. And further, we are partnering on this effort with CalCog to secure funding to support COG activities as they relate to the 7th cycle RENA requirements, because the immediate priority is to codify and fund REAP 1.0 to provide those resources to COGs, since SCAG is going to start dedicating staff resources to the 7th cycle RENA as early as this summer, while housing elements for SCAG jurisdictions aren't due until October 2029 at the earliest. And so from SCAG's perspective, we're trying to be strategic with the ask to make sure that we're able to codify REAP and get the budget ask given the difficult budget circumstances. And for these reasons, our recommendation is focusing on REAP 1.0 for now. But that doesn't affect our ability to prioritize a LEAP ask in a future budget cycle once SCAG is closer to finalizing and adopting our draft allocation for each jurisdiction's housing need allocation from the overall 7th cycle housing needs determination. And there's a more pressing need and justification to request funding from local governments to support housing element work. So that's definitely something that we could consider advocating for in a future budget cycle. And of course, that would be up to the purview of the committee once we're selecting our priorities for future Sacramento summits. But I wanted to provide that information. And if there's any further questions on that or any other portion of the REAP 1.0 codification effort, I welcome any questions at this point.
Wendy, I saw you nodding your head. So it sounds like David might have addressed your concerns.
So just a thank you. Absolutely. Thank you, staff. Appreciate it. This is, I mean, I know it's important to everybody on here, but you know how this living through Rena, it doesn't leave you. So there you go.
I think it's your middle name. Wendy, it's Wendy Rena.
Wendy Rena.
I think
I know.
Yeah.
Anyways, thank you.
So is that a motion or does anybody have any questions?
That's an emotional motion. Thank you.
Anybody want to second that?
Second, Shapiro, please.
All right.
And I was chair. I apologize. I was on, but I did not get my vote recorded for the consent agenda as a yes.
Okay, thank you.
So can I ask David Shapiro, are you seconding the emotion or just the motion?
A little above. Is that okay? I love the energy.
Isn't there a song about that? Second that.
There most certainly is, and that's where I was going first thing in the morning.
Wow. Okay. February is getting spicy. All right, let's see. So we had a motion, an emotional motion, and a second. I will ask Emma, please. That was Wendy Bucknam Shapiro. So can you please call roll?
Ellen?
Aye.
Wendy Bucknam?
Aye.
Jenny Crosswhite?
Crosswhite, aye.
Margaret Finlay?
Finley, yes.
Kurt Hagman?
Sorry, I gotta find that mute button. Hagman, aye.
Harnick?
Yes.
Mark Henderson?
Yes.
Laura Hernandez?
Hernandez, yes.
Fred Jung?
Fred Jung, yes.
Patricia Lock Dawson?
Aye.
Ray Marquez?
Yes.
Suli Saro?
Aye.
David Shapiro?
Yes. Emotional.
Alan Wapner?
Yes.
And Thomas Wong? Thomas Wong? Thank you. Madam Chair, with 15 yes votes, 0 no votes, and 0 abstentions, the committee has approved the motion on item number 4.
Hey, I'm excited about this. This is what we're going to take forward next month up in Sacramento. We got a friend in Jose Luis Salache, so I know he will be fighting for this for us. So it's always nice to have a legislator who's actually walked the walk in SCAG shoes in the RENA process. All right, we are now on to our information items. That was our only action item for this month. We're going to talk about our Surface Transportation Block Grant Congestion Mitigation and Air Quality Improvement Program update that was requested by the committee last month. This is a big topic in DC, so let me open public comment for this and see if we have any members who wish to speak on that item.
No raised hands via Zoom and no members of the public in person.
All right, thank you, Emma. We'll close public comment. And I'm going to call on Darren Chidsey, who's our Chief Operating Officer, to give us the update on this item. Darren, are you on? I see you somewhere. There he is. Hi, Darren. Good morning.
Good morning, members. Happy to be here today. As the chair mentioned, certainly over the last several months, really a couple years, we've had a lot of conversation about STBG and CMAQ. Those of you on the Transportation Committee have been seeing many items come through The executive committee got a briefing on some work that we're doing on the games related to STG and CMAC, and certainly the regional council in December voted to approve the complete last list of projects over $1.3 billion that SCAG allocated to deliver to the region. But as we get towards reauthorization, which is the federal re-upping of the long-term transportation bill, we thought it was important to have an update about how this program fits in to reauthorization, and more specifically, Member Wapner requested that we talk about it because there has been a change in how that program is administered here in Southern California, and there's been some conversations about, how best we carry that message to DC in the future. So before we get into some of those specifics, I thought it was important just to start with a little bit of a history lesson. As many of you might be aware, the surface transportation reauthorization bills generally happen every 5 years. This is what really sets federal policy on transportation as well as funding levels. And so they're really critical pieces of legislation that directs SCAG's financial activities, but as well as creates what our responsibilities are under federal law. In 1991, there was a very significant bill passed. It's commonly referred to as ICE-T, but it's the Intermodal Surface Transportation Efficiency Act of 1991. And while that bill was so important is because prior to that, when we did regional transportation plans that were certainly required under federal law at that time, we could propose a list of projects that would meet air quality goals, but there weren't a lot of limitations around that. So one of the things the federal government thought would make our plans more meaningful is to ensure that they were fiscally constrained, meaning whatever projects that we were proposing, we had to have the appropriate number of resources identified in order to deliver those projects. But with that, they knew that was a new challenge, and they knew that was a new requirement on metropolitan planning organizations. So they added a couple new funding programs to help support the implementation of those regional transportation plans. Those two programs were STBG, which is the Surface Transportation Block Grant Program, and CMAC, the Congestion Mitigation and Air Quality Improvement Program. STBG are pretty flexible surface transportation dollars. They can be used on highways, bridges, road preservation, bicycle and pedestrian infrastructure, as well as transit capital projects. CMAC is a little bit more specific. It just goes to parts of the country that are in non-attainment areas, meaning we have not met our air quality goals. So it's really directed at improving air quality in those non-attainment areas, and really targets pollutants such as ozone and carbon monoxide and particulate matter. So those are the kind of history of the two programs as they were originally designed. At that time, it was the MPO's responsibility to administer the program at the regional level, which I think is also an important thing to note, because in federal law, local, which is many of us have always pushed for, really means the MPO level. Before that, most of the funds went through the state, and still to this day, many of them do. And so it was a big shift to ensure that those programs were run by local electeds that sit on MPO boards rather than state departments of transportation. However, shortly thereafter in California, a law was passed that required Caltrans to sub-allocate the funds just for the SCAG region to the county transportation commissions. At that time, I'm sure SCAG was probably in a very different situation. I don't know, exactly the whole dynamics that led to that, but that at that time, it was deemed appropriate for this to happen. So while that might not have been explicitly contrary to federal law, it certainly was not in line with the intent of it. However, several years later, there was another reauthorization bill called MAP 21. And as part of MAP 21, the federal law changed. It strengthened the MPO's role in this process and specifically identified that the MPOs must prioritize projects in those calls, approved those projects, and really designed how those calls for projects should look. Since that time, Caltrans, after that law was passed, Caltrans got a corrective action saying that the way they were distributing those funds in California was contrary to federal law. Subsequently, when we went through our evaluation process, our recertification process to be an MPO, FHWA issued that corrective action to us as well. And it said that we weren't meeting several elements of that law within the SCAG region and required us to come up with a corrective action plan to do that. Over the last 3 years, we've been implementing that corrective action plan. And as part of that, one of the things that we were focused on is certainly ensuring that the call was open and the resources were widely available to all eligible applicants in the region, that the resources were not sub-allocated on a population basis, which was another finding in the corrective action. And instead, the projects were selected competitively in line with projects in the RTP SCS. And in doing all those things, we were able to build a very strong relationships with the County Transportation Commission, who had traditionally managed this program, to ensure that those local voices were heard throughout that process, and that there was a role in identifying the projects that each county thought was the most critical for their part of the region. As we stand here today, reauthorization is being considered in Washington, D.C. Unfortunately, we've heard some early information that perhaps it might not get done this year, but it's not all that surprising considering what's going on in Washington, and that oftentimes because of the scale of these bills, they get pushed off a little bit. But as part of that, you as this committee and the regional council confirmed that these programs are critical to bringing transportation resources to Southern California. Our federal legislative platform has always contained that we want to expand federal resources and ensure that is, whenever possible, that there's a local voice in selecting those projects. And we certainly have continued forward that in this last reauthorization request. So I know I moved through a lot of information quickly, but we'll happy to stop and answer questions and hear from members on the report.
Thanks, Darren. I know it's complicated, but it's really, really, really critical to how we roll out this funding. So I'm going to turn to our committee and see if anybody has any comments or questions regarding Darren. This is just an information item, so we don't need any action, but anybody have any questions?
Madam Chair, I can't find my raise hand thing. Can I talk?
Sure, Mr. Wagner, go ahead.
I appreciate that, Madam Chair. Yeah, Darren, I think that the part that you didn't, at least if you mentioned, I didn't hear it, was the part of the money being removed by SCAG, assuming to cover administrative overhead. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Thank you, member. So as part of the corrective action plan that we negotiated with FHWA, they actually encouraged us and it had approved that a portion of the funds be programmed by SCAG. That is a 2.5%. It's not entirely fair to call it overhead or administrative. Those are really funds that the SCAG Regional Council, through our overall work program, can program and have. So it's not administrative in nature. It's really saying that because the region, the size of the region, that the federal government thinks that it's important that there's a portion of those funds that are identified to really looking at regional issues and funding regional projects.
So is that something that's mandated under federal law, or is it discretionary from the MPO?
Discretionary action, but it was, as noted, and we can share this with you. As part of our corrective action, we submitted a request for the federal government to come review our process to ensure that it was compliant with it. And there's a portion in there that the federal government specifically addressed the 2.5%. And as I said, we can share this with you. But I think it's important to understand that their perspective on how this gets used. It says FHWA and FDA further support and affirm SCAG's policy reserving up to 2.5% of annual CMAQ and SWG obligation authority for regionally led projects. This set aside is federally eligible and consistent with SCAG's statutory responsibility to carry out MPO planning and performance-based planning. So yes, it is something that is not mandated by federal law, but certainly supported by the federal transportation agencies that oversee this program.
And Darren, how long has SCAG been implementing the 2.5%?
With the initial call, which was not a full call, in 2023, and then was part of this last call as well.
Okay, so I guess my concern and that of SBCTA is that we're giving an allocation for the counties through SCAG, and then SCAG is reserving the 2.5% to be used for programs, I guess, region-wide, correct? And I guess my concern is that, first of all, when you define local, it's been defined as MPO. We'd sure like to see local, meaning the county transportation commissions. We would certainly like to see 100% of the money, but I guess the 2.5% that was intended for specific projects in the counties is now being, I don't know, I guess is staff arbitrarily deciding where that 2.5% goes, or is that part of some policy decisions being made?
2.5% has been directed by regional council priorities. It was adopted as part of our overall work program. So there's probably been 3 at least separate actions that have been directing the nature of that work. And we did bring to the Executive Administration Committee just last month a more detailed update of those funds and how they're being expended.
I would just suggest that, I mean, it really doesn't belong here at Ledge, you know, that we're not really lobbying any state or federal agency. So perhaps we can bring it back to transportation and have a further policy discussion on it. That would be my suggestion, Madam Chair.
I think that's fine. Also at the executive committee, I think too, since it's a discretionary action, I think it's probably important to have the discussion there as well. Let me call on, thank you, Mr. Rotner. Let me call on Jan Harnick, please.
Thank you. I would like when it comes back for discussion, because what I'm hearing is it seems that the emphasis is on the 2.5% that it takes to allocate and administrate, rather than the impact and effect of the programs and how they work through our region. And if the focus is on that 2.5%, I think it would be really important when we have the discussion in transportation in the EAC to know what, before the corrective action was put in place, what were all the entities, the county and the regional transportation or the transportation committees, what percentage did they use to allocate? What came off at the top then? Because we were dealing then with a significant number of entities who were then allocating those funds. What was their equivalent to the 2.5% that SCAG took? I think that would be really important to the discussion.
I will ask that. Darren, I don't think you need to answer it now, but I think if you could be prepared to bring it up and talk about what the process, I think that's the other part of that question, right, Jan? Is I think the process was.
I think we're getting very focused on the cost of doing that business. And so we need more information to really have a well-informed discussion. I also think we have to, we can't just look at what it costs to do the business. what do we get when the business is done in the most appropriate manner? So I think we need to look at all of that. Thank you.
Appreciate that. So a little bit of what's our ROI on that expense at the SCAG level. Okay, I see Thomas Wong and then Wendy Bucknam. Thomas.
Thank you, Chair. I'm sorry if I missed it. I'm just not clear what we need to discuss further on this. My understanding, right, is that federal law requires the MPOs to allocate this funding. I'm not sure what we're trying to get. I'm not following where we're trying to go with this. I'm just looking for
I'll
clarity.
let Darren answer that. Darren, can you clarify what the issue is here that we're discussing, why it's here?
Role for SCAG relatively in the last several years, and there's significant resources attached to it. So there's been a lot of questions throughout the region to understand how this process works and ensure that there's good governance and stewardship of those resources at SCAG and throughout the region. So I think I'm not wrong. That's certainly the goal, is that we're just being open and transparent and educating all of the members about the complexities of this program. And we know that, the Transportation Committee has had several conversations on it, recently approved the updated program or administrative guidelines, and that more conversations of understanding how this program moves forward in the future will certainly be part of that committee's agenda.
Does that clarify it, Mr. Wong?
I think so.
Okay. All right. Thanks. Wendy and then Suli Saro. Wendy.
Thank you. I'm not on the Transportation Committee, so when this does come back for discussion to the Executive Committee, I know that the having local control over funds, is this something we should, when we talk about it, I just want to talk about the fact that if they're going to have control of the funds, are they also 100% responsible for compliance so that SCAG is not held responsible or liable for procedural missteps or deficiencies? If somebody could please, when we discuss that, how all of that ticks and ties, that would be super helpful to me. I don't expect, since we're not taking action on it today, it'd be good to have in that next presentation. Thank you.
To add on that, one of the reasons why the federal government prefers to work with MPOs is there's about 200 of us versus 3,000 counties. So those ability of oversight, that when they say local, the 200 is certainly a lot more than the 50 states, and that's adding a more local eye to it, but certainly working directly with over 3,000 counties in the United States. They have certainly shied away from when it comes to transportation funding.
Great, thanks. So Darren, you'll be able to include that in the briefing to Transportation and the Executive Committee. Okay. Suli Saro.
Thank you. Thanks for the overview, Darren. I appreciate it. I also have the similar question as Thomas. As far as it coming back for discussion, I'm clear in terms of with you just sharing why, but I'm interested in learning, well, with it being already federally passed, what exactly are we going to be able to, because we'll have a discussion obviously for better understanding, but I'd like to know, well, given the discussion, what are changes that we could even make, right? I hear there's concern about percentage, but what are we able to do as, I think within our discussion, because my understanding is that it's already been passed and we are even looking at for potential renewal. So within that process, what's even feasible.
Thanks. And I think I don't want to speak for Darren because I think he can answer this more directly, but I think the question is there's this discretionary money that is potentially going to be changed in the reauthorization of the bill and how that money gets distributed. And so we want to make sure we're keeping a close eye on that. But Darren, I'm going to let you chime in a little bit.
Well, the 2.5% is a local action, so it's not something that we would expect to get dictated by the reauthorization bill. But I do think that's where the conversations that the TC is expecting to have as we move forward to the next round of this program, to ensure that those resources are adequately expended on regional projects. The reauthorization piece, I think, is more specifically to, is there any change to the way the federal law is currently written, particularly for the SCAG region, as to the role that the MPO has to select projects and manage the program.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure we just clarify, what exactly the content of the discussion would be in the next, when it comes back. Thank you very much.
So Darren, the crux of the issue, right, is in the reauth is whether it stays with the MPOs or goes to the state. That's kind of at play right now.
Has been conversations I know within the region is requesting that the federal law be changed so that it could be sub-allocated on a population basis back to the county level, just for the SCAG region specifically. But I think you bring up a really important point that locally is generally the MPO, and we fought with our MPO partners in NARC and in AMPO to ensure that MPOs have a critical role in this funding. And we would think that, largest MPO in the country does not have that authority, is not deemed equipped to run this program. It certainly would erode the confidence in other MPOs and could end up perhaps in some of these funds being brought back to the state level. So, I think that's kind of the crux of the concerns that we have, on top of, we think certainly is the largest MPO in the country, that we certainly want to be in a leadership role of supporting the importance of MPO planning as well as project allocation and selection.
I appreciate that. And I know, I was just with the U.S. Conference of Mayors this weekend. We had a leadership meeting, and this was on our agenda too and it was all about just getting more money and getting the money in there. So I think that seemed to be something all these groups are unified around, right? Not necessarily how it's done. So let me go to Ray Marquez and then back to Ellen Wapner.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Darren, thank you for the presentation. Appreciate it. Hey, just a quick question on the corrective action paragraph, where you talk about collaborations with the transportation authorities. Can you tell me a little bit about that? And the reason I'm asking this is I did sense from SBCTA that there was collaboration. If you can just sort of explain that to me, that there actually was collaboration.
Answer that question.
Sure. Hi, Mr. Marquez and members of the committee. Sarah Jepson, the Chief Planning Officer. When we've worked collaboratively with the county transportation commissions throughout our whole process of getting in alignment with the and in compliance with the federal law. So when we developed the guidelines, we worked with the county transportation commissions to put those together. As part of those guidelines, the counties play a significant role. They put together a prioritization framework, and they also are responsible for the nomination of all the projects that come in from their counties. After they do that, so the projects are nominated and come in through the county transportation commissions, and then they come to SCAG for us to do an additional assessment. So we have partnered with them on the creation of the guidelines, which direct and provide oversight of the whole process, and then we collaborate with them again on the project selection process, where they score the projects first, pass them along to us, and then it is a requirement of the federal law that SCAG take that final action on project selection. So they play a significant role throughout the process.
Sarah, thank you for that explanation. Then also the 2.5%, whatever we want to call it, is that money used to help with this project, or is that the funding going somewhere else?
That funding goes to the same set of eligible uses that are available for the CMAQ STVG dollars. We are allowed to use it for some oversight of the implementation of the program, but we're also allowed to use it for regional projects. So that is why in this this current set of fiscal years that we've programmed the dollars for. The majority of the dollars that stayed with SCAG are going to our games-related efforts, which is what I presented to you on at the EAC earlier this month. And those are a set of TDM activities that are eligible under the federal law and for these dollars.
Thank you, sir.
Great, thanks, Ray. Alan, and then Margaret.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to say I was remiss in not thanking Darren for your comprehensive report. Great job, Darren. I didn't mean to skip over you. And Jen, I appreciate you helping me refocus. And I think what you said is exactly right. Don't focus on the number, focus on the purpose. So thanks, Jen.
Thank you. Margaret.
Okay, thanks. Good job, Darren. I do appreciate this also, like everyone else does. And Sarah kind of answered my question with regard to the LA 28 games. So are we going to be kind of behind the 8 ball at all because of this, or because we're allocating the money right now, that puts us a little bit ahead of the game?
I think we're right where we need to be. We have some dollars that have been are available in future budgets to support games-related activities. And the board will take action at a future time to direct those resources to specific projects. So the dollars are there for your consideration in future budget actions. The dollars that we've set aside to date in our budget were to support our planning related activities and to get the work started. So, the work that we've gotten started is we have several different consultant studies that are underway. We have the freight TDM study and plan. We have the passenger TDM study and plan. And then we have the effort related to the community hubs. So you would have taken action in the budget for this year to approve us in getting started on those projects. And in our upcoming budget, after there's more clarity on what the plan is telling us we should direct future resources towards, you would take an action in the next upcoming budget to decide how those dollars get spent. So the dollars are there for the programming, but it's your future action that's going to determine how they get spent.
Okay. That was my concern. All right. Thank you very much.
Jenny Crosswhite.
I've been debating whether or not to say this, but I'm just going to go ahead and throw it out there because this is how this relates to legislative work. And I know that many of us might not sit on the transportation committee for SCAG, but we might sit on our own transportation committees. And just as the experience that we had last year when we were out in Washington, D.C., and as we were talking to legislators, just something to think about. Is the more that we can all be on the same page, the better, because there was some confusion from some of our legislators that we were talking with, as they were hearing one thing from our transportation agencies and they were hearing something else from SCAG. SCAG was really focused on wanting to make sure we at least maintained the amount of funding, if not increased it, with the reauthorization of the surface transportation reauthorization. And they were hearing then from some of our committees, our commissions, that they wanted the way it was allocated to change. And so just your transportation committees are free to make their own decisions on how they feel they should advocate back there. But just a perspective that as we would meet with them, they'd say, well, that's not what we're hearing from, so I don't want to confuse the issue at a time when it could be challenging to even keep the amount of funding that we have, as opposed to being able to maybe even expand some of that funding for the projects in our region that are really important. So just wanted to put that out there. The more that all of the entities can be on the same page, the better, as we go through the reauthorization process.
I appreciate that, Jenny. That was kind of the point I was making with our U.S. Conference of Mayors. We were talking about all of us together, just focused on the funding and not doing anything else with it, monkeying around with it. So I appreciate that. Thank you. All right, I don't see any other questions or comments from members, so I think we will move on our agenda. Thank you, Darren, for that well organized report on a very complicated issue. Okay, we're at item 6. This is our Sacramento Summit overview, and I will ask Emma, please, do we have any members of the public that wish to speak on item 6?
Do not have any hands raised via Zoom and no members of the public in person wishing to speak.
Perfect, thank you. Then I'm going to call on David Engel again for our report on this item. David.
All right, so just wait 1 second while my PowerPoint brought up. Was everyone able to see the PowerPoint?
Yes, well, it's screen sharing, but we don't see the PowerPoint. It's just black right now. There we go.
Okay. Perfect. So item 6 is an informational item where I'm going to be providing an overview of the upcoming 2026 Sacramento Summit. As I mentioned last month, the 2026 Summit will be held on Monday, March 16th and Tuesday, March 17th at the Hyatt Centric, which if you attended last year's summit, you'll be familiar with this hotel. And the format will be the same as last year as well. So the summit will begin in the afternoon on day 1 and will end in the afternoon on day 2. I'll go a little bit more into detail on the tentative agenda in a later slide. But first I wanted to show the map. This is the same map that I presented last year with the various points of interest. So the Hyatt Centric is represented by that gold plus sign, and then the swing space is the green triangle, and our dinner reservation is at Il Fornaio again, the same restaurant as last year. So as you can see, all the various venues are very close and well within walking distance of each other. So now getting into the schedule, day 1 will start with lunch at the hotel, followed by a series of talks and presentations on timely topics, which this year we're planning to include housing, labor, and transportation and others. So the first day will conclude with our SCAG alumni dinner scheduled at Il Fornaio, as I mentioned. And so far, we've confirmed 7 elected officials for the dinner, including Senators Lina Gonzalez and Steve Choi, as well as Assembly members Sharon Quirk Silva, Tri Ta, Juan Carrillo, and Diane Dixon. And we still have a few pending invites, but it's looking to be a great lineup so far of various SCAG alumni and a few other friends of SCAG that just want to join our alumni dinner because last year was so much fun. And so day 2 will start bright and early with our breakfast at the hotel, which will serve as our rendezvous before a full morning of legislative meetings, where we'll discuss our top priorities. And so we've invited Governor Newsom and Attorney General Rob Bonta, as well as legislative analyst Gabe Pettick, who has previously spoken at our breakfast, but we have not been able to confirm any of them so far. But hopefully we'll have one or multiple of the 3 serve as our special guest speaker for the breakfast. After the breakfast, we'll make our way to the swing space where we'll have meetings with legislators and staff to discuss our legislative and budgetary priorities. And then we'll take a break for lunch, which will mark the end of our core summit program. But of course, as in prior years, while members may feel free to depart at this point, we will have a few additional scheduled breakout meetings after lunch for those that are able to stay the rest of the day, but we likely won't have any meetings after 4 p.m. So please keep that in mind as you consider your flight plans. So this year, staff is recommending that our 2 main legislative priorities include advocating for both our SB 375 reform bill, which we've been collaborating on and provided information about that at a few meetings at this point with the other COGs, and our REAP 1.0 codification bill. So we also recommend providing an update on like various housing policy issues, including our successes with REAP 2.0, among others, but we'll provide a briefing on all of these issues in advance of the summit. Regarding the legislative breakout meetings, as in prior years, we're prioritizing legislators that are more relevant to our legislative and budgetary priorities, which this year would include legislative leadership, budget and fiscal review, housing and transportation committees, as well as environmental quality and natural resources. So some of the meetings we've confirmed so far include Senators Lina Gonzalez and Kelly Sayarto, as well as Assembly members Nick Schultz, Jessica Calosa, and Steve Bennett, among various others. And that's it for my quick update regarding the SAC Summit. Thank you to those that have RSVP'd so far. If you haven't yet, there's still time. The deadline is this Friday, February 20th, and staff will send email updates as we approach the summit, including a final agenda once we've confirmed the remaining speakers and legislative breakout meetings. And we will also be scheduling briefings likely the week or two before the summit to go over the program and our priorities in more detail so that we can be prepared going into the summit. So we look forward to seeing you there, and I'm available to answer any questions regarding the summit program so far.
Thank you, David. Looks like we have a question from Margaret Finley. Margaret?
Okay, thank you. My question has to do with staying there. I will be driving up and I will be staying with my daughter. So who do I tell that to so they don't book a room for me?
I think you just did.
Okay, done.
I see David writing a note there. So, all right, David, understood.
We've got that confirmed, Madam Chair and Member Finlay. Thank you.
Okay,
Thanks, Kevin.
All right. Anybody else have any questions? I don't see anybody else with their hands raised. So thank you. I'm excited about it. It's going to be great. All right. Let's see. So we're going to move on. Are there any members of the public that want to speak to our chair's update, Government and Public Affairs Division update, future agenda items or announcements?
We do not have any hands raised via Zoom and no members of the public that wish to speak.
All right, thank you. So now we're at our chair's update. Just really briefly, I'll let everybody know that last week I had a Senate confirmation hearing for my appointment to the California Air Resources Board, and it was successful. I want to thank Comey and the team from Legislative Affairs and our Governmental Affairs team for your support. It was a 5-0 vote. Both Republicans and Democrats supported me. So that was a little unusual because I am a Newsom appointee. So that was it was nice to get the support from the Republicans as well. The woman who was up with me did not get a 5-0 vote, but she still got appointed too. So anyway, I just want to thank you all. And that has to go to the full floor coming up in the next couple of months. Secondly, I mentioned that I was at the U.S. Conference of Mayors this past weekend. This was our leadership team. We talked about a lot of different things, but transportation was very high on the list, and housing. As you know, housing is a big issue. I have some updates on that and what the conference is supporting and the resolutions we're putting forward. So I will share those with the team over at SCAG, and you can see if there's anything else you want to report out on that. But it was good. It was great. All right, that's all for me. Now I want to go over to Javiera for our Government and Public Affairs Division update. I think Javiera is going to give us an update this month. Javiera?
And congratulations again on that.
Thanks.
It's very unusual to get 5-0, so just give me a shout out again. So just a couple of updates. I'm proud to report that SCAG's 2026 Public Participation Plan was adopted by the Regional Council at its regular meeting last month. And I'm bringing it back here because it was part of a year-long preparation, which the draft document was public for circulation last September, and this committee released that. The PPP update is an important first step for our Connect SoCal Regional Transportation Plan and Sustainable Community Strategy. So this is a great first sort of outreach for the region on that, and give us guidance on how to conduct our public outreach. So you can find the final document in our SCAG website. So please take a look at the great work that the team did, and wanted to congratulate our MPA, our Media and Public Affairs, and our government team for getting great comments back. And it's already time to begin looking ahead to our regional conference and general assembly that is taking place May 7th and 8th. I bring that date again because I think there's been a little bit of confusion that folks were reserving maybe the week prior. So I just wanted to make sure that that you have the right date on that. It's May 7th and 8th at the JW Marriott per usual. And we have great programming in the works. I wanted to congratulate also member Jenny Crosswhite, who's leading our host committee, and we're almost at 80% of our fundraising, well ahead of schedule. So just wanted to congratulate member Crosswhite on that. And if you have any questions, please reach out to my team. We'll be happy to answer and help you with any issues. That is it for my report. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Javiera. Any questions for Javiera or anybody on the team? Okay, and excellent, Ms. Crosswhite. We would not have expected anything less from you. I know it's a competition with Ray now. You gotta beat Ray's number from last year. So wonderful. Thank you so much for ensuring that the conference is a success. I appreciate that. All right, does anybody have any future agenda items that they would like to see come to the group? I think we talked about a few of them today. Anything else? I don't see anybody raising hands virtually or otherwise. Okay, then. Anybody have any announcements? Anything for the good of the order? Okay, wonderful. All right. Well, that brings us to the close of our meeting, and I will call our meeting adjourned. Thanks, everybody. Appreciate your patience today with all the AV. We'll see you.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.